and just say Shy City and around the world. Welcome to another episode of Chicago's Intellectuals Podcast. Like, subscribe, and share. You know, here on Chicago's Intellectuals Podcast, we've been fortunate to bring the best and the brightest from amongst us. And today is no different. Today we have the president of the Black Achievement Fund, Mr. Arkee Hodges. How you feeling, brother?
I am feeling great, blacktastic, brother Rodney. Thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
having me on.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So we just want to introduce the world to Arkee Hodges, man, and talk about some of the spectacular ventures that you've been on, man.
Okay.
Uh, you're someone that the world deserves to know. So let's kick it off, man, by just sharing with us a little bit about your background, your upbringing. Where were you
Okay.
raised?
What's up, world? Um, I was born and raised in Norfolk, Virginia. My mom came from a middle class family, and my dad came from a family from California. But my grandmother got into street life. My father ended up being on drugs. My mom ended up being on drugs when we were young, and so I grew up in the projects.
Okay.
Um, Crack um, came up during my era. I was in the streets hustling, selling crack, cocaine, heroin, you name it. I got shot when I was 17. My right arm was paralyzed. I was told I would never use it again, that sort of thing. But I persevered. I had a vision come to me at my hospital bed telling me that the street life wasn't what I was supposed to succumb to,
Mhm.
that there were just things that I was supposed to learn there to take to the next level. And God had given me all types of warnings that it's time to go to the next level, and that's what it took. So, to make a long story short, I was going to a medical magnet school for high school, so I always did very, very well in school and that sort of thing. And it shocked everyone when I dropped out. I ended up going to a community college for a year. I moved to Northern Virginia to get out of the streets and that sort of thing, and um, started community college. And the professors thought I was cheating on my papers and all of that type of stuff. But after they saw that I weren't, they actually put me on a rigorous academic path. They had me apply to University of Virginia, William and Mary, Georgetown, got me a minority leaders fellowship in which I lived in DC over the course of the summer with brilliant kids from all across the country. And I ended up going to the University of Virginia.
Mhm.
Here I was a high school dropout.
Yeah.
Went to community college, got a GED, and I got accepted to every school that I applied to without having graduated high school. So from there, I decided to major in African American studies. I was always very conscious. I had an uncle who was instrumental in shaping my foundation with books on, Malcolm X and all of the classics, I should say. So I knew how to make money already. So I was exploring me and I wanted to do something bigger than myself. And I kept thinking, and I knew the piece that I wanted to tackle was economics. Because being a hustler, I understood money and I knew that money was a solution to so many of the problems that I faced as a child. And I was able to solve a lot of these problems with money. I was able to help a lot of people with money. I was able to support my family, sustain myself with money. So I'd come across an article about a Mexican insurance company, one of the largest, and there was a whistleblower type of article. And the company had been overcharging all of its members 50 cent a month, dollar and 2 cent a month, 70 cents a month on their bill. And it amounted to millions of dollars every single month.
Yes.
And no one knew the difference.
Yeah.
You open up the bill, you're like, you don't know if someone overcharged you 60 cent. But if it's millions of people,
Yes.
look at talking about now you're talking about $600,000.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So the concept kind of was born in my head at that time that collectively a little bit of money from a lot of people constitute a huge aggregate of capital. And so much so that if you have a broad enough number, that the amount of money that we can take could be unconsequential. So we said, okay, well, how much would we need to get $1 billion for our community?
But wait a minute. Wait a minute. I don't want you to go too far because we're gonna
Okay.
get there, man. You're
I'm
giving the
sorry.
people too much too early, brother.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Listen,
So,
tell us about your continued academic journey.
okay, so at the University of Virginia, we came up with this concept. I came up with this concept and I started sharing it with someone who became my best friend and the co-founder of the Black Achievement Fund. So while in college, here I am having the time of my life, and we got this grand idea for Black economic liberation. So we started an organization as students. We went to the Black professors on campus at the University of Virginia. They gave us a office space in the W.B. Du Bois Center on the
Mm-hmm.
campus of the University of Virginia. And for 2 years, we did a feasibility study on the idea. We met every single week as students now, every single week to vet the idea. We put together 100-page a business plan for a campaign to go out and get people to join the Black Achievement Fund. We did a door-to-door street campaign in the city of Charlottesville. We did fundraisers on the campus of the University of Virginia, and the response was overwhelming. There wasn't anyone that could come up with any credible reason why it didn't make sense to pursue this.
Mm-hmm.
And it became my life's work. We wanted to launch as soon as we graduated. But remember, this is when the internet just gets started,
Mm.
when we this idea in 96. So
Wow.
there's no e-commerce whatsoever.
Yeah.
Email had just first started being mandated to college students that you had to answer it when we were still in college in I believe it was like 1980, 1999, when the University of Virginia first went to the email system and gave everybody a edu email and all of those things. So there were a lot of concerns then that we don't even have now. You
Mm.
know, we started looking at other ideas that were similar to this, like the Garvey movement, like the founding of all Black towns like Mount Bayou and things like that. So I was going to law school,
Yeah.
and
Where'd you go to law school?
I said I was going to go to law
Oh, you
school.
were going to go. So this
Yeah.
project basically started, well, an integral part of it was a research project. It was the research project that you conducted while at the University of Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So um, internally, the idea was so powerful that I knew that if I went to law school, it would divert me away from
Ah,
launching this campaign
I
later
got
on.
you. You bet on yourself.
Yep, yep, yep. So at the last minute, I decided not to go to law school. But this was like, shoot, like in May. I was
Mm.
graduating like that month. So I didn't have anything set up, no, job plans or anything like that. And I ended up calling my uncle who had a business security and investigations firm in Atlanta.
Okay.
And at the time, he was the um, DMX's bodyguard.
Okay.
And my uncle's company did all the security for Rough Riders. So he was like, well, listen, since you're not going to law school, just come to Atlanta. I'm on the road, run the Guardian security office. Now, mind you, I'm like 22 years old, and there's like 100 and something employees, and and all these people older than me.
Mhm.
So now, here I am, 22, 23 years old, and I'm the boss of all of these adults. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
yes.
People could be my dad.
Mm.
I had to train, I had to hire, supervision, virtually everything. So I gained a lot of work experience, business experience with my uncle in Atlanta, but I needed to further vet this idea. I needed time to sit and write down the ideology behind what we were doing. And at this time, we were calling the ideology conscious capitalism or social capitalism.
So you were
So
investing in your vision, so to speak.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
Um, and once again, this is my life's work now. Yeah, all
Yes.
right. I know that I can make money outside of anything else. And so I applied to Columbia and Cornell. They were the only two that had Africana Studies programs that were credible in my eyes. Um, so I got accepted to both Columbia and Cornell, and I was invited to go and check out the schools by Manning Marable and Dr. James Turner, both the late Manning Marable and the late Dr. James Turner. So I went to Columbia first, and Manning Marable, he was a socialist, and this was the inaugural year for Columbia's African American Studies master's program, but it was a 1 year program and it didn't offer any money.
Mm.
Uh, and I went to Cornell from Columbia and I sat with Dr. Turner and I was just sold. He was just an intellectual giant. He was mentors to people like Dr. John Henry Clark,
Yeah.
Dr. Fuller, Malcolm X. He knew all of these people, and he was the first director of Cornell's Africana Studies Department, which was founded um, uh, from a takeover by Black students in 1969. So, all of the history of the Cornell department. And then that it was a 2 year program. So it gave me more time to really sit and hone the idea and write the ideology out. So I went to Cornell for 2 years, studied under Dr. James Turner. He was my thesis chair, and he also became the special advisor to my curriculum, the Standing on the Shoulders of Giants education curriculum. So after I left Cornell, he got me a job at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture in Harlem.
Yeah.
So I worked for the Schomburg Center for 2 years, um, directing their nationwide membership program. And I got to know a virtual who's who of wealthy people in the Black community through that position. I met Oprah Winfrey, Alicia Keys, all of the politicians you can think of. I worked with Bill Cosby and Maya Angelou. They were the celebrity endorsers of our membership campaign. So I had to call them and write letters and texts on their behalf for our
Mhm.
constituency, and they had to sign off on it and that sort of thing. So it was a really, really, really great experience in delving into Black culture and Black culture from an elite perspective. I then worked for another organization called Echo and Green, which provides seed capital to entrepreneurs and social capitalists, they call, or social entrepreneurs looking to start new social enterprises devoted to social change. And I worked under the first Black female president of the organization. It was started by the billionaire Chuck Feeney. I saw that he recently passed too about 6 months or so ago.
Mm.
But phenomenal, phenomenal experience there. I then went on to work for the Beginning with Children Foundation, which launched the very first public charter school in New York City. From there, I went to become the inaugural director of the African American Male Initiative, which was an initiative launched by the Children's Aid Society in partnership with Columbia's Teachers College. And it was a great initiative designed to help propel 60 Black boys through the streets of Harlem to go and get into college. And there were 5 interventions that we offered, including one-on-one tutoring from teachers from Columbia's Teachers College. All of the kids were involved in after-school programs and community centers that the Children's Aid Society ran. We had a cultural Saturday academy on the campus of Columbia, so kids, saw that these spaces were for them and not just other people. We also had a mandatory parents program, so on and so forth. So I did that for a couple years, and then I was called by a colleague of mine to teach college at John Jay in the Office of
Mm,
African American Affairs.
okay.
So that was my last job in New York before I just became a full-time investor. But so I've done a lot of things. I worked in the nonprofit. I was a consultant for nonprofit organizations in New York. And then I also grew weed in
Mm. Now, what
California.
year was this?
I started growing weed in California in 2006.
Okay.
Yep. So I was bi-coastal for about 4 or 5 years,
Okay.
and I got into some trouble growing weed. I should tell you, ended up getting a felony, got caught with some weed in Maryland and a gun. And it was supposed to have been wiped away after I did my probation, that sort of thing. And then they just flipped the script. Never heard anything back from the judge. So that was one stain on my career. But beyond that, I started my education company after I left teaching at John Jay. And from there, I got more involved in my real estate investing. So
Okay.
I've been investing in real estate for over 20 years now. Um, thank God I've been successful. All of my projects have been successful projects. And that paved the way for me to launch the Black Achievement Fund in 2019.
Okay. Listen, man, this has been exceptional so far, man. Really, great chronology of your academic journey, you know, and we need to hear that because you were young, right? You were
Yeah.
young, and there are some young people, man, that need to hear that, right? They need to hear that in the face of adversity, a couple of stumbling blocks, you continue to persevere, right?
Oh,
Because there's some young guy or girl in Virginia or New York or Atlanta that might not believe in, the possibilities that do exist. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons that we do this podcast. Let me ask you this. What are your values, brother?
Number one is hard work. That's number one, because hard work gets you out of the struggle. Hard work for me is what got me out of the struggle. Education
Mm,
is absolutely critical. Being highly educated in anything that you decide that you want to do, knowing every single thing about it, educating yourself to the limit in
mhm.
what you want to do. And I say that because education is what got me out of the streets. Okay, I made money hustling, but you can't make a life hustling.
Mm.
It's a dead end.
Has
You
an
can't.
expiration date. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. And now they have it where you can't spend cash anywhere anymore. So you can have, $5 million in cash, but to get it into the marketplace to launder the money now, you can't do it.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to be relegated to that type of life. I wanted something more, and I have people in my family who are highly educated on my mom's side. For example, just my first cousins, we have 5 Ivy League degrees.
Mm.
So my mom's side of the family was very instrumental in providing me with a lot of the values that enabled me to overcome the streets. And hard work and education Those are two of the core values. And integrity.
Integrity. Yes.
Integrity.
Be who
You
you say you are. Do what you
know,
said you were going to do.
yeah,
It's simple. It's not rocket science, right?
yeah, my grandfather used to say, don't ever listen to nothing you hear people say out their mouth. That's
Yeah.
who they want to be.
Hmm.
Look at their actions. That's who they are.
Yeah.
Look at their actions. That's who they are. And when I came to him with the Black Achievement Fund, the first thing he said is, have your own money first. Don't go out there having your whole family depending on the people's money,
Mm.
because that's when you get corrupted. That's when you get corrupted. So being independent, being very well educated, and being a hard worker.
Thank you, man. Great values. My next question. Where did you get your mindset, man? Who were some of your early influences? I know you mentioned your uncle and your grandfather, but who were some of the others?
Yeah, that's a great question. My For as long as I can remember, I wanted to be wealthy.
Mm.
My mom's brothers and sisters all did well. So my aunt and uncles on my mom's side are all affluent. Judges, lawyers, RNs. One of my uncles was a Secret Service agent who worked for 5 presidents. My uncle, who I mentioned, who was the security, private security for DMX, who has a security firm. So I had a lot of people in my family close to me who ran the spectrum of success. I had my aunt and uncle who were, you know, erudite academics. They went to what college? Some elite private college in Maine
Mm.
when they were young. He went to Georgetown Law School. My aunt uh, had a TV show in Virginia in the 80s, that sort of thing. So I'm going to their homes. I'm seeing,
Mhm.
wow, like
Yeah.
this is their house. And, remember being so proud to be over there. And,
Yeah.
uh, they have custom built houses and beach houses and all of those things. So to be surrounded by wealth
Yeah.
and in the house, and I remember like, wow, Pizza Hut comes to their house, you know what I mean? And, when the pizza man opened the door and all that type of stuff, they're looking around like, wow, black people live like this, So I was exposed to wealth at a very young age. And I was exposed to legitimate wealth. And I knew that these were regular people. I saw them every week. I saw my family. I was over all of their homes. So I saw how they were raising their children. I saw the values that they were passing on to their children. So even though I was not getting those values at home, I was surrounded by them within my family.
Yes. Yes. Very good, man. Goodness gracious, man. What a story, brother. Listen, I would love for you to just relax, man, center yourself, and tell the world about the Black Achievement Fund. What is
Uh,
happening with the Black Achievement Fund today?
that is my baby.
Mm.
Uh, on a serious note, I wanted to always live in a black community. Um, I grew up in the Cosby Show era, the different world, that sort of thing. And like I said, I also had a very influential family
Yeah.
who did have those middle class values in place, and I saw how they did work. Um, but I wanted to be African. I wanted to be African. My family, I won't call out any names of my family, but I felt that like they wanted to be white.
Mm.
That high culture was European culture, and they were willing to accept crumbs off of Caesar's table.
We're talking enculturation.
Yeah, exactly. So my cousins went to all white private schools and all of that type of stuff. And, you go to the birthday party, all of the kids are white and all of those things. So even though I liked the success that they had, the wealth that they had, I rejected the culture. I rejected the culturation. I didn't want to, I lived in the hood.
Yeah.
I was around black people in my life all the time, and I loved being around black people.
Hmm.
So there was a lot of tension growing up between myself and my family. Understand that we have polar opposite dynamics. They are all college educated, middle and upper middle class black people, and my mom went wayward. She married a drug addict and ended up being on drugs in the project, so on and so forth. So they're trying to tell me and my siblings that, listen, follow our way, enter our world, and you can live like us. But the problem was that I wanted a piece of your world, not all of your world. I just
Right.
wanted the wealth. I didn't care at all for the cultural part of your world. I didn't care about being around those white kids or white people or in those white spaces because I didn't see anything mystical about them as a child.
So,
Um,
so in essence, what I think I hear you saying is, uh, you were examining the possibility of achieving wealth while holding on to your culture.
mhm, yep.
And
So
how old were you at this time?
man, this for as long as I can remember.
Hmm.
You know, my family was always very instrumental in my life. So
Mhm.
because my mom and dad were on drugs, they were there that much more.
Right. Yeah.
So and they all lived together. So we had a really, really close family. So a lot of my aunts and uncles really served as like, de facto parents to
Hmm.
me in a way. So for example, when I was in third grade, my aunt Sylvia wanted me to get tested for gifted and talented school. My mom knew nothing about it, anything like that. So my aunt orchestrates me taking the test in third grade to go to the gifted and talented program, which would have placed me outside of the normal schools into this old other school. I took the test, thought it was easy, came back. They said that I didn't pass the test.
Mm.
So weeks go by. My aunt comes over to our house and she's asking my mom because my mom used to do her hair. My mom's a beautician, so she did all of my my aunt's hair.
Mhm.
Uh, so we saw them all the time again. So my mom said, "Well, he didn't pass the test." So my aunt called me into the kitchen. She was like, "Arkee, how was the test that you had to do for the gifted program?" And I said, "I thought it was easy." And she said, they said that you didn't pass the test. Did you think that you got all the answers right? I said, yeah. She said, did you finish the test? Were you able to, circle all the things? I said, yes. She went to the school the next day and demanded to see a copy of the test that I supposed to have failed.
Mm.
Of course, no, this is third grade. Of
Mm.
course, they don't have a copy of the test and all of that type of stuff. And my aunt demanded that I be tested again. Of course, I passed the test this time. All right. And they shipped me off to gifted and talented school. Brother Rodney, I was the only black person in my classroom. Okay. It was as hostile can be.
Wow.
All I can remember for you right now is that I was isolated and I was cold all the time. I mean, it
You're
was
8 years old. You're 8 years old.
yeah, it was freezing cold in there. And I went to gifted and talented all the way through elementary through middle school.
Mm.
And that meant that, each week I leave the regular school in the hood and they bus me to this all white school. So can you imagine? And the teachers there know that I'm there because I passed this test. You know what I mean? So anybody in the city could take the test, and they were cold, ice cold to me. I can't remember any teacher's name. No kid ever befriended me. Yeah, it was traumatizing.
Yes.
So I didn't want any part of that world. And by my family, children going to white schools and boarding school, not boarding schools, private schools, and all of those things, I was put in social circles where they were pining for friendship or acceptance among people who I knew innately didn't like us.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
knew they didn't like us. They didn't really want us in those spaces, and they tolerated them because they had money and it was a novelty. You know, they wanted to be able to alleviate some of their guilt by saying that I openly associate with Black people, but knowing that, okay, I'm coming from, I'm dealing with the most refined, cultured, and educated amongst the Blacks.
Hmm.
You know, you can go to a birthday party, but do they want you dating their children?
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
so that was a major challenge for me. And one of my uncles on my mom's side was a freedom fighter. He was in the African liberation movement. He studied, all the greats and was an active part of a lot of movements in the 70s. So I gravitated towards him a lot.
Yeah.
And reading, when I dropped out of high school, it just blew my world apart because mind you, I'm going from being gifted and talented from third grade, and then for high school, I went to a medical magnet school, Eastern Virginia Medical School. It was another magnet program, and you had to, take a test. And this was anybody in the whole city of Norfolk,
An
and
entrance exam.
yeah, entrance exam,
Mhm.
right? And myself and one other guy, Roberto Lovick, we were the only two Black guys who scored high enough to go to EVMS, Eastern Virginia Medical School. So here I am with all of this academic, knowledge and accolades and all of these things, and I dropped out of um, high school, um, and it was absolutely devastating for me. And I remember the books that my uncle gave me um, as helping to move me out of just a real deep depression. I dropped out when I found out that my mom was smoking crack.
Mm.
And this was in 10th grade, the first semester of 10th grade. And man, you taking me back, brother.
Yeah, man. Yeah, just take your time, man, because we really appreciate this, man. We really appreciate this. Yeah. Wow.
Oh man.
We really appreciate it, man. Uh, I'll be honest with you. The roots of your journey makes your story all the more beautiful, bro. All the more beautiful because it speaks to our essence as a culture, right? And we know that our essence is perseverance. Come on. Who else has gone through what we have as a culture and erected ourselves to prominence in the face of all of that adversity? You know what I mean? And
No.
my story is very similar to yours, man, but I really appreciate it, man. So just take your time, you know, share as you please. We love you for that, man. We love you for that. Yes.
No, we're talking about some heavy stuff, and
Yeah.
I had to take a moment and compose myself because, man, we've been through some trauma.
Mm.
These people have put us through a lot of trauma, and I do what I want. I do because I want us to have our own freedom apart from them.
Mhm.
I don't think that we should integrate or try to assimilate into European culture at all. It's illogical to say that this is a culture of barbarians. This is a culture that enslaved human beings, reduced human beings to chattel, sold human beings, raped human beings, sold their babies, took the manhood from the males. And now you want to say that these people are redeemable. These people, and they tell you still today, that they don't want you to be no part of their community. And here we still beg and plead to be a part of their community. There is this white philosopher. His name is Alexis de Tocqueville. And he came to America in the 1830s from France to essentially observe the American experiment, so to speak.
And we're talking
And
chattel slavery.
yeah, we're talking chattel slavery.
Yeah.
So when he came to Black people, can I share my screen for a second?
Yeah, sure. Hold on a second. Okay,
I
there you
read
go. Yeah.
in college at the University of Virginia, and it blew my mind, and it solidified my path. He said in 1835 in Democracy in America, the Negro makes 1,000 fruitless efforts to insinuate himself amongst men who repulse him. He conforms to the tastes of his oppressors, adopts their opinions, and hopes by imitating them to form a part of their community. Having been told from infancy that his race is naturally inferior to that of the whites, he assents to the proposition and is ashamed of his own nature. In each of his features, he discovers a trace of slavery, and if it were in his power, he would willingly rid himself of everything that makes him what he is.
Wow.
When I read that quote, it blew my mind. It confirmed to me what I was fighting against. I didn't want to adopt their opinions. I didn't want to imitate their culture with the hopes of being Europeanized enough to be tolerable within their presence. I didn't see anything great or superior about them, and this was from a child's perspective. I never saw it. Was never impressed.
Yeah.
And then I saw all of this strength, intelligence, and beauty amongst my own people. When I went to those gifted and talented programs, those kids won't beam in brilliance. I didn't see them as, this is our competition. So for me, the Black Achievement Fund is about African people here in America reclaiming African culture, instituting an African worldview in the communities in which we live. I looked at all of the Black-owned towns doing segregation. We talk about Black Wall Street and Rosewood and Wilmington, North Carolina, and Harlem and Old Chicago and all of these Black-owned towns, Mount Bayou and all the Boley, Mississippi, and Oklahoma. I'm sorry, all of these towns. If we're saying that this was ideal, that we had all the things that we needed in our community, why wouldn't that be our strategy for liberation right now today? We went down, I understand that the civil rights movement was absolutely necessary. You can't have a country in which you have second-class citizenship to the people who built the country. You can't have it where our dignity was being just trampled upon by a Jim Crow. So I understood the nature of breaking down Jim Crow.
Mhm.
However, that doesn't mean that we should have abandoned our own culture, our own community, in order to integrate into European society. It should have just been a means to a greater end. Instead, it became the end in and of itself. And Black leadership, the Black leadership establishment, the Black nationalists were absolutely removed from the Black leadership establishment. And the integrationists took over the Black leadership platform, and they spawned a generation of politicians as the salvation for African American communities. But the problem that I had is that their thesis of integration does not bring about African liberation at all. At all. So my question became, what is African liberation? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Because my leadership is telling me that it means that we need to integrate into America and accept first-class citizenship within a European society. Because you cannot integrate into European society without trying to assimilate to reach the higher echelons.
Mhm.
It's not possible for you to go and breach the corridors of the white world being your authentically African self, because your authentic African self concerns them, it bothers them. Your independence as a free thinking African person with an African perspective concerns them, it bothers them, and it rightfully so, because they understand and they know that their success was on your back. And now they're among someone who is just as intelligent as they are. And they know that we understand this intrinsically. And therefore, they can't fully trust us.
Mm,
You can
mm,
never fully trust us,
mm.
because are we here to tear the master's house down from within or
Yeah.
not? And that is one of the essential challenges that Black people face in trying to truly integrate in a meaningful way into white America. There's too much paranoia. When you've done all of that type of stuff that
Yeah.
they've done to people, it becomes very difficult for you to be comfortable around the very people that you raped and killed and exploited and all of those things. Because you're like, damn, these people should be wanting to slit my throat.
Hmm. Yeah. You can see it sometimes when you cross when you're at a red light, especially in a big city, right?
Mhm.
People are crossing the street en masse, and you can see the subtle concern on the faces of some people, right? But I often tell my inner circle that we have an issue with just articulating our common sense sometimes, right? One of the statements that I'll make causes people to be quite uncomfortable is the fact that Black people and white people as respective groups don't trust one another. And you just spoke to that, right?
Mhm.
And I would add, for good reason.
Mhm.
Okay. Now,
Exactly.
are there outliers? Of course there are outliers. We're not using a blanket theory. We're just speaking to the truth as you articulated so well, right?
Yeah.
We have a discussion in one of my classes. It's a policy class, right? And I often challenge the students to think about if they were slave owners, right? So I
Mm.
asked them, I said, imagine you're writing the laws of the land for this new country, and your main source of income is chattel slavery, right? When you sat down with your comrades and your colleagues to write the laws of the land for this new country, would you be writing those laws to benefit your property? You see? And some of the responses are a little bit outlandish, so to speak, because
I
generationally we're not the only people that's been lied to, right?
Right.
You
Right.
see?
Right.
So, but continue, man, continue.
But I want to speak to that because what you hit upon is really important to consider. I study history, so my thing is studying history from the origins of all humanity in Africa over 300,000 years ago to the present. And in doing so, when I studied ancient Kemet, I saw that Black people had the most wealthy civilization ever known to man. There was no civilization, even the Saudis
Mm.
don't have as much money as the pharaohs did in ancient Kemet. Okay? Now, with that being said, what did they do with their money? Did they go and conquer new lands and enslave people to expand their territory and to make more money? Did they go and enslave people on their own land and force them to dig gold and all of those things and build the pyramids? No, they did not. They took their money, they didn't build malls, They built open air temples. They built Ipet Isut, which we all know as Karnak, the largest religious site in the world. Every pharaoh since the Middle Kingdom devoted some type of building towards Karnak or Ipet Isut. All of the monuments, the statues, everything that you see in ancient Kemet is written in hieroglyphs honoring who? Gods and goddesses. Every component of their civilization was spiritual. So much so that they took all their money building things for the afterlife because they were so convinced of their spirituality. And I say that to African people because this is the inspiration behind the Black Achievement Fund. Here you have a civilization that's the most wealthy civilization in the world. And they're not out here exploiting anyone. Any of you guys can Google right now, how were the pyramids, did the pharaohs use slave labor? Archaeologists have already excavated the Giza necropolis. And what they discovered is that the workers who built the pyramids were paid, that they built the pyramid during the Nile inundation, okay? And they were paid. And they were also honored by being buried on the Giza necropolis. And they were buried with food and wine and bread and all of those things. So these workers who were even paid were even celebrating for doing this work. You can't name one despotic pharaoh from ancient Kemet. They all had to abide by the 42 laws of Maya.
Yes.
Which was carved on the inside of the tomb of Pharaoh Yunus of the 5th dynasty. So you see this culture and you see this worldview being broadcast from this civilization. It's called the Book of the Dead because when white people went and started desecrating all of the graves and the sarcophagi, when they opened it, they all had these scriptures, which were the 42 laws of Maya and varying what they call spells to help the person navigate their way to being reborn. So here we come from a people that developed spirit. There was no spirituality in the world until Africans invented. No other people on this planet had spirituality until they came into Africa. When they came into Africa, they left with spirituality. Okay, these are all facts. So if we are the originators, if we are the people that pioneered all of the math and sciences, that developed the system of government, the first kings and queens, the first religious code of ethics, if we were able to do all of this and do it in such a marvelous way that we were able to erect wonders of the world that still dumbfound the most learned person on the planet.
The pyramids.
So why would I, knowing this, accept to be a second-class consideration in the European society, in a European culture? Why would I do that? Europeans are the youngest members of the human family. So when I studied world history and I saw that by the time Europeans entered the world stage, all of the knowledge, all of the civilizing that needed to be done, all of the religion, all of that had already been worked out and figured out by African people. And I understand that these people then came and took all of our knowledge and claimed it as their own when they gained power and control. Okay, so the Black Achievement Fund is a direct repudiation of European culture, of European hegemony, and it is a direct assertion that African people need to exist as African people, and that we need to resurrect African history, African civilization, so that we can know who we are. You can't tell me you know who you are by studying someone else who is giving you a narrative of your own history. How in the hell can someone tell you who you are when they start your history off during the worst period of your entire historical journey? African people are the oldest people on the planet. So how are you going to start African history for Black Americans with the transatlantic slave trade? and then start world history with European civilization. So these are the things that the Black Achievement Fund intrinsically is fighting against. And we have the most simple solution for Black economic independence, for self-determination, and it is 10 million Black people and our allies. There's over 50 million of us in America. So 1 in 5, 10 million Black people and our allies, plus $9 a month equals $90 million every single month, and over $1 billion a year for us to finance the grand development of Black America. To that end, since June of 2020, we've been collecting contributions. We have a little over 3,000 members and supporters. We have members in all 50 states. We have about 4 dozen members internationally. The Black Achievement Fund has 12 program departments that range from real estate development, health and wellness, grants and scholarships, small business, food and agriculture, manufacturing and transportation, international affairs, so on and so forth. All of our programs and services are free or at cost to members of the Black community, members of the Black Achievement Fund. And our goal is to establish economic independence so we don't have to rely on anybody else to do anything for our communities. We're 3 years old and we've already owned 6 acres of land to build our very own members retreat in Toomsboro, Georgia, 2 hours south of Atlanta. Under contract to purchase another 94 acres adjacent to the Black Achievement Fund, 6 acres. I also owned another 12 acres over there. Another Black Achievement Fund member owns 17 acres, and another Black Achievement Fund owns 6 acres. So we're in the process of creating a southern hub for Black culture here in Atlanta, well, south of Atlanta. So all of the things that we're doing collectively. So the land that we bought the land collectively. It's owned collectively. The land is in the Black Achievement Fund's name. So that's the whole idea. And every single month, we generate 90 million to finance this ongoing development agenda, to finance. And within this agenda, all of these program departments get allocated a certain portion of that $1 billion a year. So let's just look at the education department. We allocated $150 million a year to the education department. We have capital now to build a new school every single month.
Mm.
Every single month. You have the
Mm.
capital right there. But more importantly, we also have the capital to employ teachers. If we're the ones employing the teachers, if we're the ones who build the schools and own the schools, we control the schools, we control the curriculum. It's that simple. When you go to your school and pick up your kids, do you see any Asians? When you go to any school in your district, do you see any Asians? When you go to any of the after school programs at the school, the intramural sports programs or anything, do you see any Asians?
Not at all. Not
But
at all.
yet we all know that Asians have the highest GPAs in the United States of America, the highest percentage of college graduates in the United States of America, and the highest SAT scores in the United States of America. And they are not educated in the public schools of the United States of America. When we look at the incarceration rate, Asian Americans have the lowest incarceration rate, including lower than white people. They have the highest household income in the United States of America over white people. When you go turn your TV on, how many Asians do you see on popular TV shows? How many, you turn your radio on, how many Asians do you see singing, getting signed by major record labels? Asian Americans are the model Americans for so many reasons. They've been able to become successful in America, despite white folks hate them just as much as they hate everybody else. But their culture has been their cure. Their ability to unite for their own good has been their cure. I'm right here in Atlanta. You go outside of Atlanta in certain neighborhoods, they're all Asian neighborhoods, okay? The banks are in Asian languages.
Yes.
Restaurants are in Asian languages. They have their own newspapers. and all of these things. They're educating themselves. They have their own cultural centers. They have their own religious centers,
Grocery stores. Yeah.
own grocery stores. You can go to any major metropolitan area and there's an Asian farmers market. There's an Asian grocery store, okay, that's supplying their people with cultural food,
Mhm.
food that you can't get out of Kroger's and Publix and Whole Foods and all of those types of things. So when I look at these other groups, I see this is what we should be doing. I don't believe in assimilation. I don't believe in the soup theory. I believe in the salad theory. You know, a soup is when you take a bunch of distinct items that have distinct qualities and you blend them all together, and the result, you can't taste one distinct thing from anything else. It becomes something completely different. The salad theory is when you have each piece of that salad retains its own flavor, its own identity. That's what we seek here in America. The ability to retain our own culture, to be a part of a collective without having to assimilate, without having to take on the dominant culture. So with the Black Achievement Fund, this is a way for Black people right now, today, overnight, to become economically powerful. That's the fun.
Okay. Hey man, you said a lot, brother. You said a lot. I know that you are all also involved in the Education for Life Academy. Can you tell the people a little bit about the Education for Life Academy?
Yeah, I started that before I launched the Black Achievement Fund.
Mhm.
And the reason was that I felt that it's hard to inspire a people that they have the ability to achieve economic independence in their lifetime, that they have the ability to direct their own affairs, their own large affairs, their own corporations, their own schools, their own economy, their own businesses at a macro level.
Mhm.
They don't know that they did it before.
Right.
They don't know that their people developed the wealthiest civilization ever known to man. When I started studying and I saw Brother Rodney, I know you know a lot of this, but we were walking around with gold sandals on. When you look at the jewelry that people, I've been to Kemet,
Yeah.
and when I went over there, it was far more impressive than even the books.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm in tombs of people. These weren't even pharaohs, and I'm like, this was a regular person's tomb. You got regular people who had tombs just as large as some pharaohs. You know what I mean? So when you look at the level of wealth, you know, so many of our young people aspire to be wealthy, to be wealthy. And they, all of their inspirations are white people.
Mhm.
Donald Trump, Bill Gates, and all of these types of things. Look at Mansa Musa.
Yeah. I was
Who was
just thinking about Mansa Musa.
in
He
the
wasn't
world.
the only one either.
Right. But Brother Rodney, what
Yeah.
did he do with his money? What is he known for?
Giving it away.
You understand what I'm
Giving it
saying?
away. Yeah.
So when you see black people in power, when you see black people with wealth, and you see them with wealth and power under an African worldview, they're not despotic,
Mm.
not exploitative, because that is not in their nature. You don't receive blessings that way. You understand what I'm saying? So, whew, man,
Yeah. Yeah. He passed out,
you don't know
by
it. So
today's standards, millions of dollars, just passed it out,
yeah.
you know? And not just in on his home, on his homeland. And I mean, he moved throughout the continent,
Mhm,
passing it out, right?
mhm. Building a new mosque every week. You know, so every time, you know, you look up a black person, it's like we're not evil people, but we're surrounded by evil. European culture is an evil culture. European worldview is a worldview that is alien to African people. They come from the ice, we come from the sun.
Mm.
Their worldview is 180 degrees apart from our worldview. We're social people.
Yeah.
They're individual people. We are a spiritual people. They are a non-spiritual people. These people didn't have any religion. They saw the power that religion had over the population of ancient Kemet, and they decided to use it to create power for themselves.
Mhm.
But they did it in a corrupt manner. You understand? So, Education for Life Academy is about providing Black people with a very easy curriculum to learn about African history that they will not get in school. Can I share my screen for a second?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So, some of the things that we deal with, and that quote from Tocqueville is a quote from the Education for Life Academy. So all of our classes are the same. You have the overview of the class. You have your learning objectives for the class. Here you have some, and then as you scroll down, here are all of your lessons for that class. This reading about the doll test from the Brown versus Board of Education. You're watching the doll test in modern times in 2010 with the exact same effects that it had when it was first conducted in the 60s. You have a video that a young Black girl did about her struggles with racial identity and dealing with Black dolls. You have the Jane Elliott brown eye, blue eye thing. But what's great about it is that every class comes with a quiz.
Mm.
Okay. And at the end of the quiz, if you pass the quiz, you get a certificate. So here, who is the name of this person? I mean, what experiment is this picture from? So if I say the SAT, they'll tell you it's wrong and they'll give you the right answer. So you go through, they give you a certificate. So it's an easy way to test the knowledge of your child without you having to physically go and study it yourself. I know a lot of parents are out there busy. We provide free ebooks. This curriculum has over 50 free ebooks, all of the classics. It has, tons and tons and tons of images, videos. Here we have a class on the whitening of ancient Kemet. Here you see the famous Mask of King Tut, and King Tut ruled from 1332 to 1323 BC, before Christ. And here's the first Greek ruler of ancient Kemet, Ptolemy I, and he ruled 323 to 283 BC. Now, how are you going to tell me that they didn't try to imitate African civilization? This is the very first Greek ruler of ancient Egypt. How can a white person tell me that these people did not imitate African culture? Was this Greek culture that King Tut imitated?
No,
All
sir.
right. So we show these types of things. We have stuff like the DNA analysis of King Tut. You have National Geographic doing videos talking about what we think King Tut looks like and all of that, and painting a white man. Here, right here, this is the official DNA analysis that was taken on King Tut. Okay. Last of the Amarna pharaohs, King Tut and his relatives, historical background, genetic analysis of Amarna mummies, conclusion. Let me show you this real quick. You see here? So up top are the names of his relatives. Thuya was his great grand father. Yuya was his great grandmother. KV35EL, the elder lady, that was his grandmother, Queen T. I'm going to show you that in a second. Amenhotep III was his grandfather. KV55, this is Amenhotep IV, also known as Akhenaten. KV35YL, the younger lady, this is Nefertiti, the Queen Nefertiti. Nefertiti was married to Akhenaten, and their child was King Tut. This is King Tut right here. This is their DNA analysis, and this is the region in which they DNA is most expressed. And you see Southern Africa being the number one.
Mm.
Not even Northern Africa, Southern
Southern
Africa.
Africa, yeah, yeah.
Then the African Great Lakes. So now, when you go down, you see these yellow circles?
Yes.
These are the highest concentration. These are the areas, the highest concentration where his DNA originated from. Okay?
So we're
This is
looking at South Africa and
Yep.
and,
And
and
South East Africa,
yes, East Africa, yes.
near, Ethiopia, bottom of Ethiopia,
Yeah.
where we all know that the origins of all humanity come from the South.
Mm-hmm.
What's something that we already know. So once again, if these circles were in Europe or anywhere outside of Africa, you would have known about it. They would have paraded around, oh, we got the DNA analysis of King Tut and his family, and they came from Europe.
Yes.
When they saw that this came from Africa and Southern Africa, they quietly put this to rest. You haven't heard anything about this whatsoever. The mother of, let me show you how she looked. All right. I want to go to Google for a second. I'm going to Google who is King Tut's grandmother. You see this, right? Queen T. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
This is his grandmother. So now let's go to Wikipedia. You see this?
Mm.
This is his grandmother. Okay? This is an original mask found of her. I want you to see it again. This is her and Amenhotep the third, her husband.
Okay.
Notice that their statues are the same size, demonstrating the equality
Mm.
they had. Okay, this is their children represented at the foot. But I want to show you, I wanted to take you to Wikipedia because Wikipedia try to whitewash everything, and they couldn't whitewash that.
Good
You see
whitewash.
KV55 that I was telling you about?
Yes.
Okay. In 2010, DNA analysis confirmed her as a mummy known as the elder lady found in the tomb of Amenhotep II, KV35 in 1898.
Mm.
Okay. Now, she was Nubian. So if she's Nubian and she's married to an Egyptian pharaoh and their child becomes the pharaoh, what is their child? How can you say that African people were not the people of ancient Egypt when they readily married non-Egyptian African women and these women bore royal children? Right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's look at, I'm going to show you her crown. This is the full image. Okay? This is the grandmother of King Tut.
Wow, that's
So
dope.
when you begin to discover these things and you see irrefutable evidence, incontrovertible evidence in terms of who did what, it's a level of pride that takes over any amount of inferiority that you may have ever felt in relation to white people. But you have to know it and see it. If when I talk to kids and I ask them, what color was King Tut? This younger generation don't know.
Yeah.
We think that they know about this stuff and they don't know about this stuff. So Education for Life Academy, I took 6 years to develop it.
Mm.
I could never get it launched because I just kept reading more and more and more and wanted to put
Mm-hmm.
more stuff in it. But it was a labor of love, and I wanted people to know that the Black Achievement Fund was grounded in something other than money, and
Okay.
that we're drawing from something other than European culture, that this is something authentically African, and that our leadership has studied our history and our culture to be in a position to say what is African history, what is African culture. So if you can't go back this far, how can you teach Black history? You're going to teach it from African American history,
Mm,
from the lowest point in our history?
yeah.
Doing us a service by doing that? Are you breaking down racism by doing that? So everything that we teach, I have a timeline. So the curriculum starts with the timeline of human history over
Right.
300,000 years ago. And each class goes chronological along that timeline.
Okay.
And what you see is that you're going to study class after class after class after class, and you're not going to see any white people at all because they weren't here.
They went there, yeah.
So by the time they come onto that world timeline, you're going to see all of the knowledge of civilization has already been worked out by African people. So that demystifies, in a very accurate historical way, any suggestion of white superiority.
Mm. Which we well know, but of course, the bamboozlement is on, right?
I don't know how much we know. Look, I went to the University of Virginia
Mm.
and Cornell University, two elite universities. Brother Rodney, I did not have to take one course in ancient African history to graduate from any institution.
And your major was what?
I majored in undergrad in African American studies and history,
Mm.
and my graduate studies was in Africana studies.
Wow.
And I didn't have to take one class in ancient African history. I had to take a multitude of classes in Western civilization. Not one. Now, we all know, every white person knows that all human beings originated in Africa. They call Africa the birthplace of humankind,
Civilization, yes.
of civilization. So how can you affectionately call this continent these things and then have someone graduate with a history degree and never have taken any course in ancient African history, when the whole history of the world of mankind begins in Africa? And man existed in Africa alone for over 200,000 years before they even migrated out of the continent. But yet, I can graduate from the most prestigious universities in America and never having a class on any of that. I felt like a fraud, brother.
Mm.
I felt like a fraud. Here I am, Ivy League educated, but I ain't know jack about this stuff that I'm telling you about. All of this was self-discovery because I was so ashamed and embarrassed of my education to have those credentials, but didn't know really anything about African history. If you really ask me, all I knew about African American history. And I knew about the West African kingdoms of Mali, Ghana, Songhai, so on and so forth. But nothing beyond that, absolutely nothing. So I deconstructed my education and I started learning world history from the origins of all humanity. And Dr. John Henry Clark was the one who I rely most heavily on in terms of navigating my way through world history. But it was so profound that I knew that that was the first step. We can't get people to understand that we need to shift from assimilation and integration back to a program of independence,
Yeah.
self-independence, without them having this knowledge at their footstep. And how do you get it? Because it's not in their history books. So how would they get it?
We have to give it to them.
Got to give it to
We
them.
got to give. You reminded me when you said you had to deconstruct what you had learned in the Ivy League. You reminded me of someone. It sounds like Carter G. Woodson's story, right?
Yeah.
Right.
No
Yeah.
doubt. No doubt.
Wonderful, man. So
Brother
listen,
God.
moving right along, because we don't have much time left here. How do you presently view economic independence for our people?
Economically independence for our people means that we have the capital at hand internally to finance any aspect of our development that needs financing. That is the definition of Black economic independence to me. Okay.
Okay.
Having the capital internally without having to go out and get loans from any non-Black entity.
Absolutely. Love it. I got a good one for you.
Go ahead.
I think you're going to like this one. You're going to like this one. Who's on Arkee's Mount Rushmore of
Oh,
business
man.
people? Of business people.
Of business people,
Yes.
of business. Um, hmm. I would say Reginald Lewis. Um, he was the founder of Beatrice International. He was one of the first uh, uh, large, venture capitalists, large investor in that arena for his time. So I would say Reginald Lewis. I would say Madam C.J. Walker.
Mm.
Um, I would, of course, she was a huge activist. She spent a lot of her capital assisting Booker T. Washington and the Black freedom struggle in multitude of capacities. Hired Black women, not just in America, but also throughout the Caribbean. And was the first female self-made American millionaire, even over white people. So she's definitely up there. Um, I will also have to say Marcus Garvey
Mm.
because his movement generated amassed amount of capital that was absolutely unheard of for that era. And for us, essentially piggybacking off of the Garvey movement in modern era, and we got the benefit of the internet and electronic money and all of that. Imagine having to deal with all cash with a mass movement where people paying you $5 per stock and you have to manage this all cash, and you got people all across the country and outside of the country collecting dollars for you that you then have to collect from them.
Mm.
You know, an era in which Black people didn't even see no real money.
Yeah.
So to be able to navigate those challenges and establish all of those businesses was absolutely remarkable. Um, one more person, I would say, hmm, somebody from my era. Uh, I would say a Master P.
Mm. I like that. Expound. I like
Yeah.
that.
Master P, was born and raised in, New Orleans, and we all know how poor New Orleans was. So to be a big Black guy in the South in the poor New Orleans, where you are a real target on your back, and to navigate your way out of that, to understand economics enough to establish your own record label, and then he went and put so many other people on. You don't hear Master P artists ranting and raving that they didn't get any money from Master P.
He made sure they all had homes.
You know,
Made sure they all had property. Yeah.
exactly. And
Straighten their credit out. Yeah.
no doubt. And he
Yep.
mentored people. I listened to Snoop Dogg, and Snoop Dogg, he always gives Master P
Yes.
credit. He told him Master P was the first one that gave him $1 million check, that
Mm.
paid him worth. So I look at that and how he expanded and recreated himself outside of the music industry.
Mhm.
He did movies, he did sports. He was a sports agent.
Mhm.
Got into food.
Yeah.
So he constantly reinvents himself, and he appears to have decent enough integrity to not try to be exploitative of his own people.
Great, man. I appreciate that, brother. We're going to shift a little bit here because you said a lot, and I'm sure the world can see your intelligence. So, I like to refer to people like you as our Black superheroes. Okay? Just accept it, brother. So, to ground us just a little bit, tell the world, what type of music does Arkee listen to?
Oh, you'll get me in trouble.
Yeah.
Oh, I come from the golden era of rap.
Yeah.
Know what I mean? So I came of age in the 90s. My teen years, my college years were in the 90s. So I listened to a lot of golden era hip hop, all the R&B classics, everything from Barry White to Nita Baker, I listened to a lot of reggae.
Okay.
So you'll find a lot of reggae, both old and dance hall, roots reggae, dance hall. What else do I listen to? That's about it.
Don't run from the hip hop, bro. Don't run from the hip hop. Don't do that, man. Come on.
Well, you see Biggie in the back.
Just give us the
see
Tribe
Biggie in
Called
my
Quest.
background.
Give
So
us the native tongues, then. Just give.
but Biggie, of course, is my influences. I grew up on Tribe Called Quest, Eric B. and Rakim, Big Daddy Kane. So that was my flavor,
Yeah.
hip hop.
Yeah.
Of course, then the new era, Busta Rhymes, one of my favorites, Ghostface, Wu-Tang,
Yeah.
Nas. So all
I don't want to get you in too much trouble, bro. Yes, yes. So what does Arkee read? What are you presently reading?
Oh man, I read a multitude of things. I read a lot of newspapers, news articles most of the time. So I'm usually up by 3:30, 4 a.m.
I
And
know you contacted me around it. I was up too, though, man. I'm up too. So yeah.
So I catch up on world news first. The book that I was reading last, 10,000 Years of World History by Dr. Charles Finch.
Okay.
So I read a lot of, nonfiction, heavy stuff. I'm a historian, so a lot of the stuff I read is pretty dense.
Hey, listen, man. It's been a great interview, bro. I mean, I know you didn't know what to expect, but this is what we do. This is what come out of our people on this platform, bro.
You got some great questions, and you took me back, man. Most people don't take me back that far, so I had to gather myself for a second. But I really appreciate it, man. Really.
Yeah, well, we just wanna shed light on some of the very subject matter that you expounded on, right? And we want to do it in a manner that's basically putting our intelligence, our magnificence, our sense of being exceptional. We want to put that on display as well, right? That's no brag. That's just part of who we are, right? And so we want to do that, and we do that with young people, man. If you watch some of our episodes, we got young people in their 20s who own property, who are financial consultants, and many of them started with our youth program here in Chicago, right? And they're all around the country, and they've traveled the world, and these are the type of things that we want to do. And so that's why I was so excited about interviewing you, right? About interviewing you, brother. So listen, we have come to our final section. Final section, brother. And I know you're a great storyteller because you just told us a few, right? So the name of our final section is called Bring Some Weed, I Got a Story to Tell. Now, in this section, I always like to afford our guests an opportunity to tell a story of their choice, right? Good, bad, and different, right? So now is your time, man. A story of your choice as we close.
I thought about this. It's a great segment too. I love it. All right. Another reference to my favorite Biggie there. All right.
Right. That's where I got it from, right? Yeah.
No doubt. Track number 12 this
Yes. Yes. Yes.
um so when I was working at the Schomburg Center, I told you guys that I was head of the membership program, and I also was there at all of our VIP openings. So we had over 80 public programs a year at the Schomburg Center. So most of these would have a VIP component.
Mhm.
So we had an opening of a major exhibition of women from the Ndebele culture in South Africa. They had flew to New York. They painted a mural inside of the Schomburg Center. But to make a long story short, so Maya Angelou, Dr. Maya Angelou, was the keynote speaker. So she comes to the Schomburg Center, and Howard Dotson is the chief of the center, and everybody affectionately called me Baby Boss because I was under Howard. So Howard tells me, "Okay, Arkee, I have some meetings. Maya Angelou is going to be here, so you're going to, be her chaperone until it's time for her to meet." Now, this is, I'm like, Lord Jesus, like what? But he said, "Listen here, she is to have no alcohol, absolutely no alcohol, okay? Because she got to speak tonight, and it's going to be a lot of high profile people there, a lot of major donors there, so no drinking, okay?" And I'm like, how you gonna, mind you, I'm in my 20s, you understand? So I'm like, how you gonna put this, how y'all gonna put this on me, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
everything is cool. We're in the green room of the Schomburg. She's, reading, and she says, "I'm hungry. Where can we go for get some lunch?" So I told her this place called Spoon Bread, right outside of the Schomburg Center, black-owned spot. So we go to Spoon Bread. On every corner there's a liquor store, especially in Harlem. All right. So we walk past two liquor stores.
Mm.
And we go have our meal, our lunch at Spoon Bread, nice lunch, no incident. On the way back, young man, I need you to stop over there, and I need you to go get me a pint of such and such whiskey or cognac or something like that, right? So I was like, Dr. Maya, I don't think we have time. This is lunchtime, so the event ain't till like 6 o'clock. You know what I mean? So I'm trying my very best to like kind of move her along. She
Mm.
stops, resolute. Okay, young man, I'm telling you to go in there and get me some blah, blah, blah. We have plenty of time for blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Dr. Maya Angelou, I can't go in there and get you any liquor, And she was like, well, I'm going to go over there and get my own liquor. So
Mm.
and I was like, well, I was advised to tell you that, you shouldn't drink or anything like that before the event. And she said, young man, I could be your mother. Don't dare patronize me or tell me that I can't have a drink. Go and get me this whiskey. I went and got the whiskey. So now she got the whiskey. We go back into the Schomburg, right? No chaser.
Mm. Ah.
Little pint of whiskey. So we're in the green room, and she's drinking the whiskey, and on a little rocking, blah 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 blah. I take her to do a tour of the building. We do a tour of all the divisions and all of the type of stuff, and she's kind of getting along. Now it's about 5:30, 5:45. The bottle is, you know what I mean? It's going down. It's going down, right? So Howard and them comes back from his meeting, and he sees me and Dr. Maya, and he's like, you can smell it.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
looked at me like, You know what I mean? I'm like, yo.
What can I do? Right? Yeah.
So gives me a little tongue lashing, like, we told you that she was not supposed to be drinking. She has to speak in about 10 minutes and then you better hope. I'm like, Lord. So now we go to the auditorium, and Howard is on the stage. He's doing the opening remarks, and he's introducing Dr. Maya Angelou. And then I have to escort her from backstage onto the patio. I mean the podium. I'm 5'7", 140 pounds. Dr. Maya Angelou is like 6 feet tall. All right. Like
Oh,
200
goodness. Oh,
pounds.
my goodness, man.
So we're backstage, sitting in a chair. She's sitting here. I'm sitting here. Okay, wires and cables and all of this stuff back here. And I'm like, Lord, if she stumbles and fall, I don't even know if I can hold her up. So she's drinking and drinking and drinking. She busts back the rest of the whole bottle as he's saying her name.
Whew.
I'm like, I'm toast, you know what I'm saying? So he said, Dr. Maya Angelou. So we both stand up, and she's like, walking kind of rickety, but we gotta walk over these cables and stuff. But brother, when she went out there, she had a moment of silence, and then she broke into a song.
Wow.
And the song opened up into her speech. And she delivered it flawlessly. But what I learned was that someone who was as seasoned, as well decorated as Dr. Maya Angelou at that particular time still needed something to take the edge off, to go and to quote unquote be on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it made me think about what you were talking about earlier about superheroes. And here, this woman was a superhero to everyone, but I saw she still needed her whiskey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Here's a woman who's been all over the world.
Yes.
So, man, these people are human.
Yes.
They're living, breathing, just like you and I. So we can aspire and be just as great as these people that we see, because they're just like us. How you say they poop just like anybody.
Yes. Man, she laid her matriarchal power down on you. Oh, fascinating story. Hey, listen, Arkee, man, it's been a pleasure to have you today, man. Go ahead and share with the world your social media handles, man.
No doubt. You can catch us on our YouTube, which has tons and tons of videos of me giving you public presentations of the Black Achievement Fund, all aspects of what we're doing. And that is, just go to YouTube and type in the Black Achievement Fund and you'll see us there. Or youtube.com/the Black Achievement Fund, Instagram.com/ Black Achievement Fund, or at the Black Achievement Fund, and Facebook the same, at the Black Achievement Fund. Our website is baf.solutions, no .com, no .org, or anything like that, just baf.solutions. And you can join us by simply going to baf.solutions/join. All right. We are a nonprofit 501c3 tax exempt organization. All your contributions are 100% tax deductible.
Hey, thank you for that, brother. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. It's been a pleasure. Please like, subscribe, and share. For Arkee Hodges, I am the Kid Ryan Allen. This has been another episode of Chicago's Intellectuals Podcast. Until next time, peace, peace, peace.
Peace, peace, peace. Thanks
Yes,
again,
sir.
brother. Much love.